Women have possibly become the most toxic creatures on the face of the earth. At the very least, animals in the animal kingdom operate based off of whatever their inherent nature is. We don't turn our backs on cats. We don't turn our backs on lions. We don't turn our backs on tigers. You know why? Because we know that the nature of those animals is to get in a hunting position, stance, and then a pounce on you. So it's very difficult to domesticate one of these animals. And when we see it happen and people try to domesticate them and then they turn around and get mauled once those animals, regardless of whether or not they've ever been in the wild, turn into the animals that they are, we say, see, you fucked around and found out. You messed around and found out today. No matter what it is that we see happen in nature, people go swimming out in the ocean, they get swallowed up by a shark. Oh, he fucked around and found out. We understand the nature of every single creature on the face of this earth, even men. Men understand the nature of what men are. And so, because of that, we're very careful about the men that we surround ourselves. And we also know that men are competitive. We know that men are going dirty mag. We know that men are always in competition with each other, even if it's friendly competition. And so we understand who men are. And then when we tell you, hey, sit your black ass home because you know that the men that you identify as your friends is really trying to fuck you. And so the nature of him is still the same. And then you still operate based off of that dumbass mindset that you have because you never had a father, a strong father in your life in order to give you the insight so you can move a little bit differently. And so you out here on your own, struggling, doing what you think is the best thing for you, when in reality, you just create another army of single baby mamas that's not going to be doing the thing that's in the best interest of the country, their family, themselves, or the kids that they're going to birth that then have to be raised by other single mothers, and then it's going to turn into a matriarchy in your family, and y'all all going to be broke, dusty, alone with a bunch of student loans, asking Biden for forgiveness and voting on him and voting for him because he's telling you you ain't black if you vote for him. I mean, good God, how much more do you want? How much more evidence is there in that women hate the fact that Simone Biles is married? this, good God. What country do we live in to where there's so much hate towards your own? The same ones that will sit here and say, hey, we all need to band together or stop worrying about it. Let me tell you what else I've seen as a trend coming into 2024. When you say something and you address them directly, like I had a conversation last week, and then we chopped it up and we threw it on Instagram in a reel, and then we threw it on TikTok, right? And I was saying that, yo, the statistics show, and there's people that work for these DNA testing companies and these hospitals, and they say, listen, 40 to 50% of all of these guys that think that these children are theirs, they're not really theirs. But because of HIPAA laws and because of confidentiality and the way in which we're supposed to operate, they can't necessarily say it unless they go through the proper procedures to actually be able to tell somebody, hey, that kid really ain't yours. So if a large portion of the children that are being born and have been born, because we've just really developed the technology to be able to quickly get the results the way that we need to, and these guys are still stupid because they simping, and because you don't want to get a DNA test at birth because you just trust her, instead of leaning into the thing that's best for you. Shout out to LeGarrette. I'm going to read that super chat shortly. When I call it out and I say, listen, you can't really get to the conclusion, or you can't really build, if the culture that we live in is built off of secrets, and mama, grandmama, and great grandmama was really for the streets, but y'all think that she was so awesome because we didn't have the technology to really call her out, but because she held that secret and went to the grave instead of bringing herself to the front of the congregation, we still see this hussy as the great woman that she was, when in reality, she was holding secrets because her kids that she had wasn't really with the man that she was with, but it's another man's kids. And then a large portion of these guys can't even trace their lineage because their father ain't their father. But because I call it out, then it's, we need to leave the toxicity in 2023. No, we need to go forth and really address the issues, because for a long time, for over 30, 40, 50 years, we've been subjected to different waves of feminism that's not necessarily in our best interest. So how can you build a house on a foundation built with lies? How can the foundation be so murky and dirty and ugly And you building this entire infrastructure on a whole bed of graves. It's a bunch of graves. It's a bunch of secrets that's in that grave that we haven't uncovered. And we don't know where we come from. We don't know who our real fathers are. Right? And when I say we, I'm speaking to the majority. Obviously, not personally, but we got to speak to the majority. And if we don't know who we really are, if we don't really understand where we come from, if we don't understand why we have certain tendencies and why certain things is being passed down into us, but it's not in relation to the person that's raised us. If the person that raised you is then so much of a simp that he's not honest enough to actually call the mama out, but he's letting the mama go down with these secrets, and then all of a sudden some of y'all wake up, and I don't know how many comments and how many DMs that I've gotten where guys is basically like, Anton, I didn't even know who my real father was until I was 40. Anton, my mother was almost 60 years old until she told me who my real father was. Or she never told me who my real father was. She just kept quiet. But I realized it. And then my mama didn't really want to bring herself to the front of the congregation and admit what it is that she did. Because we've always placed 100% of the blame on men, and then we cloaked it with this whole idea that men are the leaders or they're the strong ones, so they supposed to shoulder the burden. Fuck you. Now we want to call it out and bring it to the front of the congregation. So now all of a sudden we supposed to shift and leave it in 2023. No, I'm going to carry it in 2024. I'm going to carry it in 2025. And until y'all bring your mother to the front of the congregation and confront her like the hoe that she is. Because let's be clear, she didn't change and get a different perspective all of a sudden, and she washed herself and cleansed herself when she decided that she didn't want to be I don't want to be a hoe no more. She didn't change. She just aged out. Yo mama never changed. She just aged out. That's it. If she was still able to hold on to her youth like a Kardashian, because let's be clear, your mama didn't just turn, to a piece of trash all of a sudden. She just ain't got no more money. You know what I'm saying? You know how they say you're not ugly, you just broke. That's it. Paycheck to paycheck, aged out. And so now she decided she wanted to settle down after she lived all of her years as a hoe. And then she had you. And then you don't know who your father is. And now we supposed to leave that in 2023. And the most disappointing part of it is then you see guys coming out here and they saying the same thing. Anton, I mean, what are you doing? Why do you think it's necessary to bring it up? Because you can't keep living in a lie and thinking that we supposed to build the future on that. You can't. In order to solve for a problem in any issue, in any situation, even if you're an alcoholic, even if you're a person that has a substance abuse problem, the first thing that they tell you to do in order to fix a problem, you got to get to root cause of it. And you have to admit that you was wrong. Even once you sober for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years and you get that pen, you still got to come to the front of the congregation if you want to speak. Hi, my name is John and I'm an alcoholic. You know why? Because it's never really left you. And in order for you to live some sort of semblance of normalcy in your life, you need to admit what it is that you're battling with. And what your mama and your grandmother was really battling with was being for the streets.